Good morning. There we are. Welcome to Unity of Boulder. We're so glad to see you this morning. So we are going to open up with a song, The Strength of Love, and we'll have lyrics on the screen. We've done it before, so you should be familiar with it, but we'd love for you to stand up and sing it with us, if you would.
While you're all standing, I'd love to ask you to turn and meet one another and get a new friend's name today, and let's build this community. Let's make some friends and take all the time that you want. Hi. Hi, Carrie. I know you. Nice to see you. Hi, Marianne. Nice to see you both. Love you. Good morning. Nice to see you all. Good morning. Hi. Let's pat ourselves on the back and say, thank you, God, for me. It's an important process of knowing that we're made in the image and likeness of God, so we have to find that love and know that that is the truth of our being. And at this point in the service, I want to recognize anybody that's visiting us from any other Unity around the country. Is there anybody that's visiting us for the first time from another Unity? All right, we had a bunch at the first service. If anybody's new today, you could just put your hand up like this, and our ushers will come and find you. We have a gift for you with a gift certificate for our bookstore and information about upcoming classes and drop-in groups, anywhere from divorce support groups to singles groups to NGU, which is Next Generation Unity, which is all for the 18 to 35-year-olds. There's so many drop-in groups. There's a place to plant yourself and to plug yourself into this community, no matter what it is that interests you. So make sure you look at the back of your handouts, and it has the whole list of all of those. And I just want to thank you for being here. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, lady. One of those drop-in groups she was talking about, we actually have one today at 1 o'clock. It's called our Conscious Communication class that's led by our good friend Steve Hayes, that anyone can drop in on that one. We also have today, our big event today is at 5 o'clock tonight. We're having our kids' Halloween party. It is a free event. We've got games, candy. We have haunted houses put together by our teenage YOUers downstairs. Please come out to it. We start with a potluck, so if you have a meal you'd like to bring to share with other people, please do so and get dressed up and come on out. It's always a great, fun time. The kids have a great time. The adults have a fun time. It's one of the best free Halloween parties you can come to in this town, so that's tonight at 5 o'clock. We're having our Samhain celebration this Wednesday. That's, if you look at your handout, it actually looks like it says Samhain. This is a celebration led by Norma, where we celebrate our loved ones who have passed. If you'd like to come to this celebration, it's a drop-in. Everyone can come on in. An offering will be taken, but bring a picture of your loved one, or bring a message you have for your loved one written down on a sheet of paper. And finally, we also have our Christmas wreaths for sale. I know it's a little early to start thinking about Christmas, but we order these amazing wreaths that our amazing person outside, Marjorie McCurtain, takes care of every year to raise funds for Unity. It's a suggested love offering of $37 a wreath, and they are the best wreaths you can get. I've had them before. You get them early December. They'll last all the way through to mid-January, and you can get that right out here in the lobby. All right, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Let us take a moment for prayer, which is to enter into the reality of the omnipresence of God, acknowledging that presence, drawing ourselves more completely into it, into that awareness, with these words: I am resting in the presence of God. With every breath, I am resting in the presence of God. Let us shorten that mantra to these few words: resting in the presence of God. Resting in the presence brings peace. Resting in the presence solves my problems. Resting in the presence heals my relationships. Resting in the presence heals my life. And as we feel this divine energy flowing through us, we release it to go out to all of the people who have suffered the tragedy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to all of the people who are members of the Tree of Life Synagogue, to all of the family and friends of the victims in this tragedy. And to everyone involved, we send our love and pray for comfort, pray for healing, pray for the presence to be with you all. Our brothers and sisters, our love is with you now. Amen.
Now, if you know this song, you're welcome to sing along with us. It's a beautiful song.
You will do amazing things with the choice each new day brings, and with every step you take, bless the progress that you make. The reasons you live is there in every gift you give. Love your life, love your dreams. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Oh, the places you will go and the people you will know. Don't worry when or where or how. You don't need to know right now. You're on the right path. No need to look ahead or back. Just enjoy what this day brings. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. You don't have to work it out. Just stay in the here and now. Let your mind rest for a little while. Sometimes deepest answers come when you're out there having fun. So close your eyes and take a breath and smile. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things.
stealing my podium.
But you really don't want me stealing this.
That's true. I need my notes. How are we all doing today? I heard a little bit more out of this section, so I'm going to talk this direction today. Take some of that energy. Well, that's good to hear. We just got back from a little time in Mexico. Anyone else get back from Mexico recently? I think we should all go together because it's awkward if I'm the only one who went. So next time, you like that idea? Okay, next time we'll do a group trip to Mexico. All right, let's get going here. Let's get serious. Let's get down to business. This is a quote from the movie Pocahontas, for those of you who might have seen it. This is Grandmother Willow speaking, and she said, "Sometimes the right path is not the easiest one." Well, a couple of weeks ago, I talked about catfish, for those of you that were here. And if you missed that talk, you might want to pick it up. It has a lot of great information about how to catch bottom feeders, so you want to check that out. Anyway, in that talk, we touched on the idea of suffering. Does it even exist? And if so, is it necessary? Is it a necessary part of life? As for me, I believe suffering does exist in the human condition. And I do believe if you understand suffering in the proper perspective, it is in fact necessary. But even more importantly, I believe life is not meant to be lived in suffering. We are not meant to be in suffering. It is something that we choose and we create, and that most of us are experiencing to some degree on some level. So I want to make that clear. I'm not really into suffering. I don't want people to suffer, but I recognize that there is suffering out there, and it is something that we have created. So let's start here and see where this takes us. The first topic of discussion for this morning will be relationship disasters. Does this feel like home to anyone? I've been in that situation, but we're going to get into that later. So if you've experienced a relationship disaster, you might recognize it as a relationship that was really unhealthy for one or a number of reasons and was only getting worse as time went on. So I've been in a couple of those relationships. Has anyone else ever been in one of those relationships? Now be honest, be real, get raw here. Call yourself out. All right. I think a lot of us have probably been in that sort of relationship. Both parties know this is not healthy for us. Both parties watch it getting worse, but neither one pulls the trigger. Neither one ends it or gets out. So now there is the thing about a relationship disaster that we seem to let it always go far too long. Has anyone else ever recognized that? It doesn't end when it should. Like the point of no return came and went long ago, and here we still are in this disastrous relationship. We don't get out of it, we sort of just marinate in it, in this stew of suffering. We just sort of marinate there for a while for whatever reason. Now, why do we do this? Well, I think we choose to stick it out because we don't want to face the results of a breakup. Right? We don't want to go through the process of a breakup. I've been in this place several times in my life, and as I've been in this place, I've come to a very effective strategy, and that is that I will hold out longer than the other person can possibly stand it, so they are forced to do the breaking up. That relieves me of all guilt and all blame, and I'm free to move on guilt-free. But seriously, in a situation like, I actually have done that. That's not just me making that up. And it does work quite well. But in this situation, we are faced with a very difficult decision. We can do nothing and move on as usual. We're sort of familiar with the suffering at this point, and we just kind of go ahead knowing what to expect. Or we make the choice to go out on a limb into the world of the unexpected, which many times we don't want to do. So here is what we know. When we're in that situation, the breakup is almost certainly going to be miserable. That just seems to be the way we've created this situation. No matter how much both parties know they should not be together, the breakup's still going to be miserable. We can't just say, I'm not in it anymore. You good? I'm good. Let's just go our separate ways. It doesn't really ever seem to work like that. For some reason, even though we know it's not working out, we still have to make the breakup miserable. But here's the other thing we also know. Once we get through the breakup and it's over, life is going to be so much better. Are you following me? Have you been in that situation? You know the breakup's going to be difficult, but you also know once you're through it, life is going to be so much better. So the long and short of it is, sometimes we have to choose to do something difficult in order to get the benefits later on, the long-term benefits. And so it goes with life, and that sort of meets us in many different parts of our life. The hard choice is sometimes necessary in order to have the experience that will come afterwards, to have the growth opportunity on the other side, to have the next blessing in life. So I want to share a quote with you, but I want to clarify two things before I give this quote to you. In Unity, when we talk about heaven or we talk about the promised land, we are not referring to some place outside of us, some place in the afterlife, some place out there. We're talking about an experience to be had in this life, on this planet, right now, in this body. We don't have to leave this body. We don't have to leave this life to get to heaven. It is to be had here right now. And the word Christ in Unity is not something that was specific to Jesus 2,000 years ago. The word Christ refers to the higher consciousness that is within each and every one of us, that if we grow spiritually, we'll become more in tune with this Christ consciousness, all right? And we'll be living more from the Christ consciousness. So here we have this quote from one of my favorite spiritual books, Living Between Two Worlds, by Joel S. Goldsmith. He says, "You are going to discover, as everyone has on this path, that there are some painful steps before you reach the promised land, or what we would call heaven on earth. And there is no avoiding it. Problem after problem we overcome in ourselves, until eventually we rise to where problems no longer enter consciousness because we have attained Christhood." As I see it, Joel is simply stating the obvious. As long as we recognize difficulty as difficulty, we are going to experience difficulty. I'll say that again. As long as we go through life recognizing difficulty as difficulty, we will continue to experience difficulty. That is fundamentally what he's saying. And if we want to rise above the place of difficulty, we'll have to stop seeing difficulty as difficulty. At some point, we'll have to transcend the way of living that recognizes any opposing force as difficulty, any situation as difficulty, rise above that, and we will no longer experience difficulty. So this is actually an interesting quote, because when I found it and I read it, it reminded me of something I've discovered about myself in the past 5 years or so, which I didn't necessarily realize beforehand, which is this. I get a lot more out of a spiritual teacher who acknowledges the difficulty of the path more than I do from one that focuses on the joy and the bliss and the miracles that come on the path. I get more out of one that acknowledges there's going to be difficulty on the path. Now, trust me, I've been told many times that people don't also relate the way I do to these types of quotes. I resonate with understanding there is going to be difficulty on the path, but the payoff is so worth it. I resonate with that. But I also understand, as many people have told me throughout my ministry over the last 7 years or so, a lot of people don't like hearing that part of it. And they don't resonate with that. And neither one is good or bad. It's just something I've noticed about myself. So while others resonate with the idea that maybe the road can be easy, I resonate with the idea that it's probably going to be difficult. But there is going to be a very big payoff. And so quotes like this from the Bible are ones that I enjoy. From Matthew, this is Jesus saying, "Enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the road is easy that leads to destruction, and there are many who take it. For the gate is narrow and the road is hard that leads to life, and there are few who find it." Now that is my jam. I love that. I dig that. And I think primarily because I've recognized that in my life. And I've recognized that in the lives of the people around me. In my life, when I've had extreme difficulty, I've also had a huge growth spurt because of it. I've recognized huge benefits because of it. I've passed through the narrow gate to those opportune times, if you see them that way. Some of my most difficult points in life have become the most rewarding experiences in the long run. And I think maybe I have this outlook about this type of teaching or these type of quotes because of how I was raised early on. My mother, Norma Groverland, when we were kids and we would fall ill or we would think we were sick, she would get us very excited about it. She said, "Do you know, when you have this type of sickness or difficulty, you grow because of it." And we'd say, "We grow because of it?" You know, when you're a kid, you can't wait to be taller and bigger. So like, I'm going to grow because of this? Now, maybe she was inferring to like spiritual growth or mental growth, but I'm thinking every time I get sick, I get taller. And you actually do get taller sometimes as a kid. After you get sick, you have a growth spurt, you do get ill, so there is some truth to that. But that was sort of the thing I was raised with. There's a beautiful opportunity here in this difficult time because you're growing. You're going to grow because of this. You're going to be better because of it. You're going to be taller because of this. So that's where I got my start. So maybe that's why I resonate with quotes like this so much. But I know some people get turned off by hearing such quotes, hearing about the difficulty of the process itself. So I don't want you to get me wrong. I'm not looking for a difficult path. I'm not calling for a difficult path. I'm not inviting a difficult path. I am very much open and welcoming of a very easy path and easy go at life. I have no problem with that. As a matter of fact, I pray for that every day. Just make my spiritual path nice and easy, and I'm just going to slide into heaven on earth, and we'll all be just okay. I'm perfectly fine with that. I see that there's no problem there. But as much as an easy path might be what I want or I prefer, I have to remain open to what I really need. Does that make sense? I might prefer a nice and easygoing path, but I have to remain open to what I actually and really need. And what I need is what we all need, what everyone needs, which is self-realization, which is to remember and rekindle our connection with God, to fix this severed connection we have with God on the most deep and authentic level, to come home again, if you want to put it that way. That is really what we need. A connection that we have severed or we have restricted through our disconnected way of thinking and our disconnected way of living. So a lot of people want to say, well, did God play a part in this? No, this is a part we have played, that we have done to ourselves, that we have pulled away from source, and now we are experiencing this disconnected life, not because it was put upon us, but because we have created it. So what do we need to do? We need to fix this connection that we have either damaged or severed or put barriers in between us and it. So whatever helps us get there, whatever helps us heal this connection, whatever helps make this connection once again, is what we actually need. Right? The process may not be what we want, but to fix this is what we actually need. So let's go back to the relationship analogy. I think a lot of us can relate to that. If I'm in a truly unhealthy relationship, there is a moment of difficulty that I will have to pass through in order to move through that process. It's there. There's no avoiding it. There is that moment of difficulty, and if I face it today, or I face it 4 months from now, or 10 years from now, it's just sitting there. It's waiting for me. And it's the same thing with an unhealthy career. It's the same thing with an unhealthy friendship. It's the same thing with an unhealthy addiction. There is a moment that's calling me to push through, to move through this process that's happy to wait around as long as I push it off, but it's still there. Because we're going to have to leave something familiar for something unfamiliar. It's bound to come with a level of discomfort. If you think about it, every time we leave something familiar for something unfamiliar, there is a level of discomfort associated with that. Some uneasiness, some trepidation, some doubt, usually some fear. So we're obviously going to try to avoid it. That's what we do as humans. We don't want to face it. We don't want to deal with it. And I bet there are some of you right now sitting out here today who are probably stuck in unfulfilling careers. You're there, but you just can't bring yourself to do anything about it. And I can relate to that. I've been there. I was working at the MGM Grand Hotel in Las Vegas. I had ridiculous benefits, amazing benefits. I was getting paid quite well, and I was the top in my department, so I pretty much set my own schedule. Life was pretty good. And then the universe thought it was time to have a calling to go into ministry, which none of those things apply anymore. I don't know if you know that about ministry. So oftentimes we're in that situation and we can't bring ourselves to do anything about it because, well, I'm pretty comfortable with what I have. Luckily, Homer Simpson has some words of advice for us, and I often turn to Homer in times like this. He says, if you don't like your job, you don't strike. You just go in every day and do it really half-assed. That's the American way. We're laughing because I think we've all been there. Trying to avoid life's unpleasantries doesn't solve our problems or bring health into the situation. Trying to grin and bear it might be the American way. It might just be the human way that our consciousness is set up, trying to push off that difficult time. But it's one of the most unhealthy things we can do in the human experience. So I want to go on a little side note here for a second. Before anyone thinks, I'm telling you it's time to quit your job, or I'm telling you it's time to leave your partner. That is not what I'm saying. Because work is actually one of the most valuable and beautiful things you can do on the spiritual path. And there's a lot of misnomers out there that talk about dropping out of society, getting out of your job, doing that thing. But if you look at the Zen truth, chop wood, carry water, it is the work that carries you through on your spiritual path. That is part of your journey. It's a very beautiful thing that gets vilified very easily in the spiritual work. So I just wanted to put that aside there so no one go out and quit your job tomorrow or leave your spouse, whatever you're thinking of doing. But the point I'm trying to make here really is to be aware. To be aware of where you are, to be aware of who you are, to be aware of the choices you are making. Because ultimately, we tend to choose the path of least resistance. When we're faced with these difficult times, we tend to choose the path of least resistance. We stick with the familiar because it's comfortable, and we tend to buy into this slogan. People actually say it when they're in these hard times. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. What I love about this meme is it's such a beautiful and calm background for such a horrible saying. You don't normally get such a pretty background for such a horrific saying. And it really is a horrific saying. I mean, you think about what's actually being said here. It's saying, now, we recognize your life is garbage, but there's a lot worse garbage out there. So just stick with what you've got. And that's a horrible thing to really do because I think it might be better if we just learned to transcend garbage. But there is some truth to this because there are people that living a life of garbage, having a consciousness of garbage, tend to attract more garbage no matter what they do because they have not stepped into the place and the awareness to transcend the garbage of their consciousness. And then they wonder why they keep living it over and over again. But this is the situation we are in. Now, I'm not saying there's no truth to this, but we have to move on from this type of thinking and this idea. And it might actually require us to choose a different path. Instead of the path of least resistance, it's time to choose a different path for once. So, when we think about stepping out of our comfort zone, we often try to avoid doing just that. We often chose the path of least resistance so much that we don't even recognize we're doing it anymore. It becomes our de facto way of solving problems. What's the easy way out? How can I dodge a difficult situation? How can I just disappear from the room and not deal with it altogether? It becomes our de facto move so much so that we don't even realize we're doing it anymore. And I've been there, and I can recognize even that about myself, that we try to avoid these situations. So it might actually be time to do something different. Instead of trying to find the path of least resistance and choosing the path of least resistance, we've got to do something else. So does that mean choosing the path of most resistance? Who gets excited about choosing the path of most resistance? Not a single hand? Come on. No, it doesn't sound very fun to consciously choose more difficulty every time we're faced with a situation. Well, what if we weren't supposed to choose a path of most resistance, but instead we're supposed to choose the actual path of least resistance? To choose the actual path of least resistance. Well, what does that mean? Oftentimes we think we have chosen or we are choosing the path of least resistance, but we are really only choosing the path of short-sighted, short-term gains. Think about it. Sticking with a situation that we know doesn't serve our highest good really only creates more resistance in the long run. More friction, more difficulty, and more suffering in the long run. So it seemed like the path of least resistance at the time to just stick it out, but really in hindsight and looking at the bigger picture, it is not that path. So we thought we chose the path of least resistance, but it didn't give us the results we were looking for. It's the same idea with not quitting a dead-end job. What's the long-end result of that? You get depressed, you probably get ill, you get upset, you become angry because every day you go to do something you hate and you don't resonate with. So we create actual more resistance for a longer period of time by trying to avoid the short burst of difficulty that is coming, by quitting that job if it is that job. But don't quit your job. Just calm down about that. It's just an example. So I'm going to give you an example from my own life. I've spoken before about my brilliant real estate endeavors, and I'm going to speak it again. Around 2008, that time when the whole market crash was happening, I owned a fourplex in Detroit, 3 properties in Las Vegas, including my personal house in Las Vegas. I was heavily invested in real estate, much against the advice of my father, Jack, who said, it doesn't look like real estate's going in a good direction. And I said, you don't know what you're talking about. That was the one time he was right. One. I want to be very clear. Don't give him any more than he deserves. This is the one time he was right. So there I was. I was heavily invested in real estate. I was paying credit cards with credit cards. I was paying mortgage payments with credit cards. You know, you get those little checks in the mail that's interest-free for 8 months if you use this check. Well, I'll use that check to pay my other credit card or pay the mortgage payment on one of my properties. That's how I was juggling this whole situation. Trying to avoid and resisting the difficult reality that was looming above me that this was all going away. And there was very little I could do about it. Trying to avoid this and resisting it and fighting in which only prolonged my suffering and increased the amount of suffering on me and my family. And it was funny because I really didn't enjoy real estate at all. I didn't enjoy being a landlord. I didn't enjoy dealing with lawyers and agents and all that stuff. I didn't enjoy it, but boy, I was fighting for it tooth and nail as if I did, trying to hold on to this concept. And it was such a short-sighted outlook on the situation, right? Now, had I been able to let go sooner in this process, instead of prolonging it out and pushing it out and fighting it and dealing with it and going and going and going, had I been able to just let it go earlier in the process, I would have had significantly less suffering for a much shorter amount of time. And in the long run, when I really look back on it, I had not even entered into the equation joy. I wasn't thinking about what brings me joy and health, what brings joy and health to my family. I was very fixated on saving the properties, saving the business. And I thought that was a path of least resistance, but it only brought more difficulty for a longer term. Because the actual path of least resistance in that situation, the higher path in that situation, the path that my higher awareness was calling me towards but that I was not listening to, was very different from the path I had chosen. But I wasn't listening, and I imagine many of us are not listening in those times of crisis. We choose the short-sighted, illusionary objects of money, of things, of security and comfort and stability and consistency, and we choose them all over joy. And it's amazing, I haven't even just watched this in my own life, I've watched this in counseling I do. We are all the time consistently choosing the chaos of the world over joy. And it is that simple. People caught up in divorces, financial crisis, job loss, all these things, we constantly choose the chaos of the world over joy. So look at my real estate crisis. Had I been listening to my higher awareness at that time, this is no doubt what it was saying. Do you really think those properties are yours? Do you really think any of this actually belongs to you? Do you really think you get to own God's creation? What is there to lose if none of it is yours? It was a really small, selfish, and limited perspective that I had at the time, which caused me to fight for something that I thought was mine. To fight for an outcome that was ultimately completely out of my control. I was fighting for an outcome that I had in my mind that was completely out of my control, which is kind of an insane concept when you really think about it. And from this selfish, limited perspective that I was caught in of me and mine and my things and my result, I created more prolonged hardship in my life. But in the reality of the situation, I was in it pretty deep. So we have to be realistic here about the expected results. Making better choices in that moment, had I made better choices in that moment, would not have alleviated hardship. I was already flying down the highway of hardship. Slamming on the brakes was not going to all of a sudden make it any easier. Hardship was at the end of that road. But it definitely would have had lessened the blow of the hardship had I been able to let go sooner, and would have made it a lot shorter. Now, if we think about switching a life from one that has been lived in the thought system of the world, which I was at that time, and we switch it to one that is being lived from God, in and through God, expressing as God, that switch is bound to come with some resistance, just like anything else in life. A human mind is a reluctant thing to try to change. Has anyone else ever recognized that? Now raise your hand if you know that about yourself. All right, good. There's some people becoming self-aware. It's like anything else. First, you have to recognize your own shortcomings. A human mind is an incredibly difficult thing to change. And this is a note that might help you for the rest of your life. It's impossible to change in somebody else. Just accept that now, and your life will be so much easier. Give up. If it changes, that's on them. So, there will be resistance to this change. A healthier lifestyle might actually be inconvenient or even painful as you try to make a switch into a healthier lifestyle. Prayer might feel uncomfortable or meaningless as you try to switch to a life of prayer. Meditation might appear to be fruitless and difficult as you try to switch into a life of meditation. True selfless empathy and compassion might actually be a struggle as you try to switch into that way of living. We have been conditioned to live a certain way for thousands of years. Thousands of years of programming, so we shouldn't expect that this is just going to go away easily. As if all of a sudden making different choices, smarter choices, is going to make things easier. Well, that's not how it works. It's bound to come with some difficulty, resistance. Resistance from friends, resistance from family, resistance from culture, resistance from society, and even resistance from our own bodies and our own minds. I'm talking about physical resistance from the body to new spiritual concepts and ideas coming into our consciousness. That is a real thing, and that is called chemicalization and unity. But that's a different talk for another time. But here's what I want to emphasize. This initial resistance is short-lived and short-term. And here's the problem. If we are short-sighted going into this change, which will experience short-lived and short-term resistance, we will likely give up. We'll give up on prayer, we'll give up on meditation, we'll give up on a healthier lifestyle, we'll give up on actually living a truly compassionate life. We'll give up on those things because our short-sighted consciousness will see the difficulty and want to bail. Either we won't go all in or we'll pull out altogether. And this situation of choosing the path of least resistance appears to be time to just give up and not try anymore because it got difficult. But we can't just play the short game, the short-sighted game, because there's also a long game on the table. There's a long game to be played here. Just like in golf, you can't just have a great short game. If you don't also have a great long game, you're not going to succeed at the game of golf. Now let me just check my demographic up here. How many people know what movie this is from? Raise your hand. Okay. I'm reaching very few people. That's good. This is Happy Gilmore. That is Adam Sandler. And he's screaming at a golf ball that won't go in the hole. The primary issue here is we are mostly making our choices from this short-sighted, limited awareness that's looking for short-term gains. We don't want difficulty, we don't want resistance, so the short-sighted awareness tries to avoid it altogether. But to look at what we really need, what we all really need. We need more peace, we need more love, we need more compassion, we definitely need more wisdom. And we need more joy in the human experience. What we truly need is more divinity in our lives, and we need to start living from a more higher, expanded, Christ-like awareness. That is what we truly need, regardless of what we think or we want. Ultimately, we need to learn how to experience life without resistance. We're in a resistance mindset, but we're trying to evolve out of that into a life without resistance, which will require us to look at our problems and difficulties from an entirely new perspective that is not short-sighted, but has a long-term, beneficial way of looking at the world. Which ultimately and fundamentally means giving up the selfish, which means giving up the self. The key word in selfish. To release our personal will unto the divine will, which is our true and ultimate desire. The path to the kingdom of heaven on earth requires the giving up of the self. The me, the mine, the I want, the I need, the I have, the I know better than you know. Giving up the separate life for the one life. Giving up the short-sighted awareness for the higher awareness that actually has answers to all our problems, that actually knows what we need before we ever ask. And the master teacher Jesus said, if you want to find your life, you're going to have to first lose it. If you want to find your life, you're going to have to first lose it. That means you're going to have to give up what you think life is. You're going to have to drop this concept of life that you've established so far in order to open up to what life is actually about. It's not about me. And the great Chinese master, Lao Tzu, said it this way in the Tao Te Ching. The greatest misfortune is the self. What does the greatest misfortune is the self mean? The reason I have great misfortune is that I have the self. If I have no self, what misfortune do I have? If we want to find joy in this life, we need to stop trying to find little personal pieces of joy, little fragments of joy just for me. We would have to start to get in tune with what is the greater awareness of joy. What is the source of joy? What is the essence of joy? I don't want just a little piece of it, my style of joy. I want to align with what joy is in the universe, the very essence of what it is. That is what I need. What Lao Tzu is saying here is very simple. There's one thing holding me back, and that is that I think there is a me. The one thing holding me back is that I think there is a me. That I need to get my piece of the pie. I got to get my little piece of the pie. I've got to scratch away and get my little piece of the pie. Well, let me ask you this. Would you even care about trying to get a piece of the pie if you realized you were the pie? Let's take a moment for meditation to let this seep in. So I invite you to close your eyes if you're comfortable. Let your hands relax at your lap or at your side. To straighten the spine. To align the body, the heart, and the mind into a place of stillness and peace. Believe it or not, there is actually an opportunity to experience joy in this life. Unwavering, consistent, pure joy. That's not dependent on any circumstance, situation, desire, or outcome. A joy that sits there simply waiting for us to get on board. So why then do we choose otherwise? We're just moving too fast. Too distracted, too unaware, too out of focus. And so when we take time, like we are now, become aware of the breath, to slow down. Slow down the heart. Slow down the mind. Allow the body to relax. Allow ourselves to let go of trying so hard. To simply just be. And there it is. Everything we've been searching for. Striving and working, conniving, trying to figure out. It's sitting right there. And we take a moment just to turn it all off. To be still. To listen. To stop talking and thinking. But for once, just receive. Can you feel that wave of calm? Can you feel that spark of bliss? Even if it seems so tiny, short-lived, just recognizing it is there, blast open the doors of possibility. Perhaps if I was just a bit slower, a bit more calm, a bit more at peace, I could allow it to grow, to expand, to fill everything that I am. what a blessing it is that we've been given this tool, the ability to stop, to reconnect, to align and listen. So with gratitude, we go forth from this meditation. So it is. Amen. I just want to share one last beautiful miracle that happened on my trip. The hotel we went to charged extra for Wi-Fi, and we chose not to pay for it. Amazing. Amazing for my family, amazing for my daughter, amazing for us. Take that opportunity. Thank you.
We will take an offering for unity now. And as we're preparing to do that, I'd just like you to take a moment to reflect on how blessed we really all are with what we have, and especially to be able to share in this information, this life-transforming truth, that we are divine beings going through a human experience. And learning how to do that requires aligning ourselves with what Shad was just talking about. Such an incredible talk that took us all the way through the way human beings carry on their lives and how to do it more effectively. So we are truly blessed to be sharing in this information. It's information that the whole world really needs to share more of. So let's feel gratitude for that and put that gratitude into our offering, because that's what helps us keep Unity of Boulder moving along and inspiring more and more people. So as we take our offerings in our hands, let's bless them with this offering statement. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give. Together, please. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give. And we have the Gals of Unity sharing their beautiful music again.
One little boy in Africa, he put a face on AIDS, told his story to the world till he died, and these are the words he said. He said, do all you can with what you have, in the time you have and the place you are. Do all you can. Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have and the place you are. Do all you can. Do all you can. Ah, 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 ah. Ah, 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 ah.
Holy Mother in India, helping the sick and the poor. Somebody asked, why do you do these things? She said, this is what I came here for. She said, do all you can with what you have, in the time you have and the place you are. Do all you can. Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have and the place you are. Do all you can. Do all you can.
what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. Do all you can. Ah, 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 ah. Ah, 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 ah. One little boy in Africa, do all you can.
Holy Mother in India,
Do all you can.
Be the change you wish to see.
Do all you can. Do all you can. Do all you can. Do all you can. Do all you can.
We want to let you know that we have prayer partners available to you at the end of this service. If you're facing a challenge in your life, you can just stay seated in your seat, and a trained prayer partner will come and find you and take you down to our beautiful meditation room. But we also want to let you know that we have refreshments right after the service with bagels and coffee and social time, and all of the ministers will be over there, Jack, Norma, and myself. So we'd love to meet you over there. And then on this side, we have CDs and DVDs of the talk right after the service in the bookstore. And we also want to thank everybody that connected with us on live stream. We appreciate you, we feel you, and we're connected with you, and thank you for joining us and being a part of this amazing community. All right, let's all rise and close the closing benediction.
And let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, family all are we. Let me walk with my family in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Do all you can with what you have. Amen.